We're going to move on to recommendation 1, which is about building multisyllabic decoding. Now, some of you got to hear me talk about this a little bit last year in one of our breakout sessions, because this is my new obsession. This is what I do and think about all the time. This is a big part of my research project, is how we can get kids up that ladder of text complexity, specifically through helping them read harder and harder words. But there's some great recommendations in here, and it's broken down into 4 parts. One is to identify the level of students' word reading skills and teach them vowel and consonant letter sounds and combinations that they need to read the words. So something else we were talking about at the table over here is that 4th and 5th graders who can't read often can read a ton. In fact, in my research study, the students that we were working with could read 85% of the 2-syllable words that I gave them. So that's pretty good, right? They can read a ton, but they do have holes or gaps that they often need to go back and revisit, especially post-COVID, right? Then 2, teach students a routine they can use to decode multisyllabic words. 3, embed spelling instruction in the lesson. And 4, engage students in a wide array of activities that allow them to practice reading multisyllabic words with increasing automaticity. So we're going to look at each of these parts just briefly. When we think about word parts for decoding, all the things that they need to decode single-syllable words, they also need to use in decoding multisyllabic words. Many students just kind of don't know that. I mean, it sounds silly, but they just don't know that it's like the ruby slippers. I'm like, you've had the power all along to read this word, you just didn't realize it, right? And so really helping them make this transition from using their short vowels, their long vowels, their vowel consonant E patterns, their vowel teams and diphthongs and R-controlled vowels, using all of those things, just transferring them. Say, what you know about vowels over here are also things you can use to figure out this word over here. Something that I find in a lot of curriculum, and Words Their Way is a key offender in this area, sorry, Marcia, is that we either teach only single-syllable words or only multisyllabic words. We do not do enough lessons where the 2 types of words are mixed together to allow kids to see that continuum. So you might have kids who are having trouble just generalizing their knowledge of phonics and phonics patterns that they've already learned to multisyllabic words. They often do not need to go back to reading intervention and do a bunch of work with single-syllable words. They often just need help making this leap and really making sure to distinguish between those 2 things. Kids who are below reading level in 4th and 5th grade, the vast majority of them, Freddie Hebert estimates that it's 94% of them, 94% of the kids who are below basic and NAEP do not need to go back to reading intervention that would be appropriate for 1st or 2nd graders. They need help making the next step. So it's you have to assess the kids and you have to figure that out. But most of the kids are not going to need 1st grade phonics or 2nd grade phonics. They need help reading multisyllabic words. Now, there's a new pattern here, this consonant LE pattern that doesn't show up in single-syllable words that they can struggle with because it's not obvious how to pronounce it. But it is very regular. The TLE, BLE, KLE, it always just has that schwa sound in that final syllable. So little things like that can absolutely help them. But also just helping them generalize what they've learned about single-syllable words to multisyllabic words. A lot of programs really lean heavily on syllable types. How many of you have 4th and 5th grade teachers who are very attached to syllable types and teaching syllable types? Good, yes, we don't have to undo too much. So syllable types are fine because in some ways they are just a way of trying to generalize what you know about single-syllable words to multisyllabic words. However, we don't want to over-rely on syllable types because what we find is that, well, in my research I found that if a kid can read 1 syllable type, they can read all the syllable types. There isn't a distinction. Some kids can read 1 word and what type of word, and some kids can read another the way there is with phonics. So there isn't a scope and sequence the way there is with phonics patterns where you have to teach each one individually. Most kids are able to kind of get the gist of reading different multisyllabic words once they get over that hump. But also, some of the rules that we teach to go along with the syllable types are really unhelpful in the long run. So one of the things that often comes along with syllable type instruction is this idea that if you have an open first syllable that will have you should try the long vowel sound first. And if you have a closed first syllable, you should try the short vowel sound first. And then you still have to do flexing. They acknowledge that. But that's how you should start trying to decode this word. But Devin Kearns did research where he found that those rules for like what vowel sound to try first only work for 2-syllable words some of the time. So for the closed first syllable short vowel connection, that's only accurate in about 80% of 2-syllable words that kids might encounter in text. And it's only accurate in about 62% of the 3 or more syllable words that kids encounter in text. The longer words get, the more irregular the syllable patterns get. Same thing, and then the long vowel, the open first syllable long vowel connection is even worse. It's only true half the time for 2-syllable words, and it's only true less than 20% of the time for longer words. So basically, it's not that syllable types are bad or having kids practice vowel flexing is bad, that's all fine, but it's not really the same as just teaching kids phonics and having them apply it. There's going to be a lot more work that they have to do to figure out the word. And so what I am recommending and what I'm doing in my work and is also in the practice guide is that we really focus on morphemes. I'm going to run out of time, so I have to move faster. But that we focus on morphemes as part of both decoding and meaning-based making. Because this is, when kids are in 4th and 5th grade, they are really focusing in on, they're starting to encounter new vocabulary words in text. Not just words that they know but haven't read before, but they're expected to learn new vocabulary words from text, and common prefixes and suffixes and Greek and Latin roots will help them. So here's a word part lesson sequence. I adapted this from the practice guide. This is also in the slides, which are linked in your agenda. And then we also want to teach kids, the next part, we teach kids a routine for reading multisyllabic words. So BEST is one of the research-based routines. Break it apart, examine the base word, say each part, try the whole word. And then Ishlav or Ashlav is also one of the best researched ones. And I know Annie's going to talk about this more later, so I won't go into detail here. But basically, it doesn't matter what routine. You just want to make sure kids have something in their back pocket for, for decoding these words. So we want to make sure that we're not spending more time teaching rules than teaching words. And not spending a bunch of time teaching kids the right way to syllabicate words. Syllabicating words helps as far as it helps you break it into chunks for decoding. But if you break it into the wrong chunks but read it correctly, that's fine. So we want to focus on applied practice here. We don't want kids to read the word, then syllabicate it. We want them to identify the word part, syllabicate it, and then read the word. If they already know how to read the word, they don't need to syllabicate it. So moving on, we want to integrate spelling instruction also. Helping kids spell the words that you're teaching them will help them solidify them in memory. So there are a couple of, one of my research studies found that kids have a really hard time including morphological information into their spelling. So they spell chewed without thinking about the root word and the suffixes, right? So morphological instruction also helps with spelling. And there's a spelling lesson sequence in the practice guide as well, focused on multisyllabic words. And then you can also do cute things like, Linear Area recommends things like spelling pronunciations to help kids remember how to spell strange words. So re-signed instead of resigned. And then finally, we want to engage students in a wide array of activities that allow them to practice reading multisyllabic words accurately and with automaticity. And there's a range of examples in the practice guide too, like word sorting, reading with a copy of the routine for multisyllabic decoding right next to you, sentence writing, word list reading, and repeated readings of sentences and paragraphs with tough words. So this connects to Essentials 6 and 7, research-informed and standards-aligned writing instruction, specifically around the spelling. This is where explicit spelling strategies comes in. And also Essential 7, intentional and ambitious efforts to build vocabulary, academic, and content knowledge. And this is where morphology is. I wanted to we spent a little bit more time on this than we will the other ones because there isn't an essential for this, right? You have to kind of pull across essentials to get to the multisyllabic decoding. And this is something that we often talk about morphology as though it's just a vocab building tool, but it's actually a really crucial part of decoding as well. If you think about the way the suffix tion is pronounced, right? Have you ever heard a kid try to read a word tion? Yeah, we have to teach them that as a decoding unit. We have to teach them that it's shun. Like, they will never get there by going letter by letter, right? Like, so using pulling these things together, pulling spelling, pulling morphology, and pulling multisyllabic decoding together is something that you're gonna have to do. We want our educators to know the reading challenges for students and how they change over time. That there isn't a binary, kids can read or not read. That they can read words or not read words. That even kids who can read words and are pretty good readers in first grade need to continue the word learning in second grade. Kids who are good readers in second grade need to continue the word reading in third grade, et cetera, that this is an ongoing process. We want them to understand what the keyword parts are, especially how to use morphemes. We want them to teach the keyword parts, teach a routine for reading long words, teach spelling of long words, and provide lots of opportunities for practice reading long words while you're there to scaffold them. And you want them to be teachers whose students cross the decoding threshold before they get to middle school. We want to set kids up for success.